It was an early morning in New York City. The tall glass buildings were glowing under the soft sunlight, and the sound of expensive cars filled the air. Inside one of those buildings, Adrian Cole sat in his office, staring at his computer screen. He was a billionaire, the kind of man everyone respected but no one truly knew. His face looked calm, but his eyes were tired. He lived for business meetings, money, and success, but something in his life was missing. His mansion was big, silent, and cold. The only sound that warmed the air came from his 10-year-old daughter, Lila. Lila was sweet and gentle, full of curiosity and life. But she was also lonely. Her mother had passed away years ago, and her father was always busy. Every morning, she had breakfast alone, with only servants walking around the house. The only thing she wanted was her father's time. But Adrian thought money could replace love. He didn't notice how much his daughter missed him. One Saturday morning, while Adrian left for another business meeting, Lila decided to do something different. She quietly slipped out of the mansion, carrying her small sketchbook and colored pencils. She told the guard she was just going for a short walk, but she had another plan. She wanted to go to the park, the place she always saw from her car window but never got to visit. The park was full of laughter, children playing, and sunlight touching the green grass. Lila sat on a bench and began drawing. She wasn't very good at it, but she tried. After a while, she noticed a girl sitting under a big oak tree. The girl was around 16, wearing torn jeans and an old gray hoodie. Her hands were covered in chalk dust, and beside her was a small board full of beautiful drawings, portraits, animals, and even scenes of the city. Lila couldn't stop looking. The girl drew with so much focus and emotion that it looked like the pictures were alive. Slowly, Lila walked closer. "Hi," she said softly. The girl looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi," she replied shyly. "I like your drawings," Lila said, smiling. "Thanks," the girl whispered. "I just draw for fun, sometimes people give me a few dollars." "What's your name?" Lila asked. "Maya," she said. "What's yours?" "I'm Lila. Do you think you could teach me how to draw like that?" Maya looked at her, confused. "You want me to teach you?" "Yes," Lila nodded. "You're amazing." For a moment, Maya hesitated. She wasn't used to being spoken to kindly, most people walked past her without even looking. But something about Lila's innocent eyes made her smile. "All right," Maya said. "Let's start with something simple." She showed Lila how to hold the pencil differently, how to see shadows and shapes. Lila listened carefully, following her instructions. They laughed when Lila's drawing went wrong, and Maya gently helped her fix it. Hours passed without them noticing. For the first time in a long time, both girls felt truly happy. But in the distance, someone was watching. Adrian's driver, Mr. Thomas, had gone out looking for Lila. He froze when he saw her sitting on the ground beside a homeless girl. His heart started racing. Without thinking, he called Adrian. "Sir, I've found her, but you need to come here right now." Within minutes, a black luxury car stopped near the park. People turned to stare as the door opened and Adrian Cole stepped out, his suit shining, his face serious. He looked completely out of place in the middle of the laughter and color around him. When he saw his daughter sitting beside a homeless girl, his expression changed to shock and anger. "Lila," he called sharply. His voice cut through the air. Lila turned, startled. "Dad," she stood up quickly. "I was just..." "What are you doing here?" he asked, walking closer. His cold eyes moved to Maya. "Who is this girl?" Maya stood up slowly, clutching her sketchboard. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. She just wanted to learn how to draw. Adrian's anger softened slightly when he saw her face, tired, gentle, but full of quiet dignity. Lila ran to him and held his hand. "Dad, look what she made." She held up a piece of paper. It was a portrait Maya had drawn of Lila, soft lines, glowing eyes, every detail perfect. Adrian took the drawing and stared at it. For a moment, he forgot everything around him. The picture looked so real that it almost breathed. He looked at Maya again, really looked. She had talent, more than most artists he had ever met. But she was wearing torn shoes and her hands were shaking slightly from the cold. Something inside him shifted. "Where did you learn to draw like this?" he asked. "Nowhere," Maya said softly. "I just draw what I feel." Before Adrian could say more, rain started to fall. People rushed to take cover. Lila quickly held her sketchbook over Maya's drawings to protect them. Adrian watched, surprised by her kindness. "Let's get in the car," he said finally. "You'll get sick." Maya shook her head. "No, I'll be fine. I live nearby." "Where?" Lila asked innocently. Maya hesitated. "Just around." Adrian understood what that meant. She had nowhere to go. But before he could say anything else, Maya picked up her things and smiled at Lila. "Keep drawing," she said softly. "Don't forget to see the world with your heart." Then she walked away into the rain. Lila looked up at her father, her eyes full of emotion. "Dad, she's amazing, isn't she?" Adrian didn't answer. He stood still, watching the girl disappear into the gray street. Something about her felt strangely familiar, her eyes, her calmness, the way she spoke. He felt a strange pull in his chest, one he couldn't explain. As he sat back in his car, rain tapping against the window, he looked again at the drawing in his hands. The homeless girl's art had captured something deeper than beauty, it had captured his daughter's soul. And for the first time in many years, Adrian Cole felt something unexpected, curiosity, and a hint of guilt he didn't understand. He whispered to himself, "Who is she?" And in that quiet question, a story of truth, kindness, and redemption had already begun. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the city washed and shining. Adrian Cole sat by the window of his study, the portrait Maya had drawn resting on his desk. He couldn't stop staring at it. The eyes, the emotion, it felt alive. He had seen expensive paintings worth millions, but none carried the warmth of this one. Every time he looked at it, he felt the same question echoing inside him: who is this girl? Downstairs, Lila sat at the breakfast table, her face glowing with excitement. "Dad, can I go back to the park today?" she asked. "Maya said she'll teach me how to draw hands today." Adrian looked at her. "Lila, that girl," he began, then stopped. He saw how happy his daughter looked. It was the first time in months she had woken up smiling. He sighed. "Fine," he said quietly, "but Thomas will drive you there. And stay close." Lila jumped up and hugged him. "Thank you, Daddy," she said with a grin. For a moment, Adrian smiled too, a small, unfamiliar feeling spreading through him. Later that day, as Lila returned to the park, Adrian called his personal assistant, Daniel. "I want you to find out everything you can about a homeless girl named Maya," he ordered. "Age, background, anything. She might be around 16. Daniel sounded surprised. "A homeless girl, sir?" "Yes," Adrian said firmly. "And keep it quiet." Meanwhile, at the park, Maya sat in her usual spot under the oak tree, sketching a group of pigeons. When she saw Lila running toward her, she smiled. "You came back," she said softly. "Of course," Lila said, sitting down. "I brought snacks for both of us." She opened a small lunchbox, offering a sandwich. Maya hesitated but then accepted it with a quiet thanks. As they ate, Lila talked about school, her favorite colors, and how she wished her dad would draw with her. Maya listened, amused by the little girl's stories. "You're lucky to have him," she said softly. "My dad used to take me to the park too, before things changed." "What happened?" Lila asked curiously. Maya smiled sadly. Life happened. Sometimes, people lose everything, but they keep moving. Lila didn't fully understand, but she could see pain in Maya's eyes. She wanted to make her smile again, so she opened her sketchbook. Let's draw together, she said brightly. For the next hour, the park was filled with quiet laughter and chalk colors. People passing by slowed down to watch the strange pair, a billionaire's daughter and a homeless girl sitting side by side, creating art on the ground. Some even took pictures. But Maya didn't care. For those few moments, she felt seen, not invisible. From a distance, Adrian's driver watched the scene. He smiled faintly and reported back. Sir, the girl's name really is Maya. She's teaching Miss Lila again. Adrian nodded, pretending to stay focused on his work. Did you learn anything else? Not yet, Thomas replied. But she doesn't seem dangerous. Just poor. Poor. Adrian repeated. The word felt heavier than usual. He had been poor once, a long time ago. But he had buried those memories under layers of money and success. Now, watching Maya through a phone picture Thomas had sent, something about her eyes made him feel uneasy, like she knew a pain he once knew himself. That evening, after dinner, Lila showed her father another drawing. Look what we made today, she said proudly. It was a picture of the park, the trees, the swings, the sunlight. But in the corner, Maya had drawn something small, a bird with one broken wing, still trying to fly. Adrian looked at it for a long time. She drew this? Yes, Lila said. She said it means hope. Even when the wing is broken, you can still try. Her words stayed with him long after she went to bed. He walked to his study and stared at the city lights. He couldn't understand why a homeless teenager's words were echoing louder than all his board meetings. The next morning, Daniel entered the office with a file. Sir, I found some information about the girl, he said. Adrian looked up sharply. Maya Johnson. 16 years old. Used to live in Brooklyn. Her parents disappeared 6 years ago after a fire. The case was never solved. She's been living on the streets ever since. Adrian frowned. A fire? Yes, sir. Her father used to work at a construction company, one of your company's partners back then. Adrian froze. My company? Yes, sir. The records say her father, Samuel Johnson, was part of a building project that collapsed before completion. There were legal issues, and he was blamed. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his heartbeat quickening. He remembered that project, the one that had caused him sleepless nights years ago. His old partner had taken the fall to protect the company's image. Could it be the same man? That evening, Lila begged him again. Please, Daddy, can Maya come over tomorrow? I want to show her my art room. Adrian hesitated. The idea of a homeless girl inside his mansion felt unusual. But something in him whispered that he needed to know more. All right, he said finally. Invite her. The next day, Maya arrived at the gates of the Cole mansion, her clothes simple but clean. The guards looked confused but let her in when Lila ran to welcome her. Inside, Maya's eyes widened at the grand chandeliers, marble floors, and glittering walls. She had never seen anything like it. Mrs. Gray, the housekeeper, smiled warmly. Welcome, dear, she said. But as she looked closely at Maya, her eyes softened, almost like she recognized her. Adrian watched from the top of the stairs. Maya stood there, small yet composed, holding her sketchbook tightly. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw something hauntingly familiar in her face. He turned to Mrs. Gray and whispered, Tell me, have you ever seen that pendant she's wearing? Mrs. Gray's eyes widened. Yes, sir, she said softly. Years ago. It belonged to Mr. Samuel Johnson, your old partner. Adrian's breath caught. His heart began to race. He looked back at Maya, her quiet eyes studying the room, unaware of the storm she had just awakened. For the first time, the billionaire realized that the homeless girl who taught his daughter might not just be a stranger. She might be a piece of his own past, one he never meant to face again. The evening sun poured golden light through the mansion's tall windows as Maya sat nervously in the art room. The space was brighter than anything she had ever seen, walls painted soft white, shelves filled with brushes, paints, and canvases of every size. It didn't feel real. Lila was running around excitedly, showing her every color and tool she owned. "You can use anything here, Maya," she said, grinning. Maya smiled politely, still uneasy. She wasn't used to kindness from rich people. "Thank you, Lila. This place is beautiful," she said softly, her voice full of wonder. Down the hall, Adrian stood near the doorway, pretending to be on a phone call. But he wasn't really talking, he was watching them. His gaze followed Maya's every movement. Something about her calm posture, her polite tone, the sadness in her eyes, it all stirred something deep inside him. He couldn't stop thinking about what his housekeeper, Mrs. Gray, had said earlier, that pendant belonged to Samuel Johnson. The name echoed in his mind like a ghost. Samuel had been his closest business partner years ago, an honest man who had believed in hard work and fairness. But one project, one mistake, had destroyed everything. There was a fire at a construction site, and the blame had fallen on Samuel. Adrian had been too afraid of losing his reputation back then. He had let the world blame his friend. And afterward, Samuel disappeared with his wife and young daughter. Now, as Adrian looked at Maya, he couldn't shake the feeling that life was bringing that past back to him, in the most unexpected way. Mrs. Gray entered quietly and whispered, "Sir, would you like some tea?" "No," he said without looking away. "Just keep an eye on her." In the art room, Maya started sketching again. She moved her pencil gracefully across the paper, showing Lila how to capture the light on her face. Lila giggled every time Maya complimented her work. "You're such a good teacher," Lila said. Maya smiled faintly. "I had a good teacher once too," she said, her voice distant. "My father taught me to draw before her voice broke off. "Before what?" Lila asked. Maya shook her head. "It doesn't matter," she said quickly. "Let's draw something happy." While they drew, Adrian came closer and stepped into the room. His presence made Maya tense immediately. He was powerful, calm, and cold, the kind of man she usually avoided. "Your drawings," he said quietly, "they're impressive." "Thank you, sir," she replied politely, without lifting her eyes. He walked closer, pretending to look at Lila's sketch, but his eyes were fixed on Maya's necklace. A small silver pendant hung there, shaped like a feather, slightly bent and old. He remembered that pendant. He had given it to Samuel Johnson as a gift the day their company launched its first big project. He felt his chest tighten. "Where did you get that necklace?" he asked softly. Maya hesitated, then looked up. "It was my father's," she said. "It's all I have left of him." Adrian's heart stopped for a moment. His suspicions were right. The homeless girl who had touched his daughter's heart was Samuel's daughter. The daughter of the man he had once betrayed. But he didn't speak. He couldn't. His mind raced with guilt, confusion, and fear. If she ever learned the truth, if she knew that he had let her father take the blame, she would hate him. Mrs. Gray entered with a tray of cookies and tea. Her eyes flicked between them and she sensed the tension. "Everything all right here?" she asked. "Yes," Adrian said quickly. "Everything's fine." But his voice sounded strange, even to himself. Later that evening, Maya prepared to leave. Lila begged her to stay longer, but Maya smiled and said, "I'll come again tomorrow, promise." Adrian offered, "Thomas can drop you wherever you're staying." "No, thank you," she said politely. "I walk." When she left, the silence in the house felt heavy. Lila ran upstairs, humming a tune, but Adrian stood by the window, watching Maya disappear down the long driveway. Mrs. Gray stepped beside him. "You know, sir," she said softly, "sometimes fate brings back what we try hardest to forget." Adrian turned to her sharply. "You think I don't know that?" Mrs. Gray looked at him with gentle sadness. "Maybe it's time to make things right." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, looking through old files, old photos, and news clippings. There it was, the article from years ago, engineer Samuel Johnson accused of negligence in fire incident. The photo beside it showed Samuel smiling with his wife and little girl, the same eyes, the same necklace, the same face. "Maya." He leaned back, covering his face with his hands. "What have I done?" he thought. He had built his empire on truth, or so he believed, but now, staring at that photo, he saw the cracks in his perfect image. The next morning, Adrian called Daniel again. "Find out everything about that fire. The real story. I want every document, every report." "Sir, that case is closed," Daniel replied. "Then open it," Adrian said sharply. "Something about it doesn't fit." Meanwhile, at the park, Maya sat on her favorite bench, looking at the drawings she and Lila had made. For the first time in years, she felt seen, like she mattered again. But deep down, she still carried her fear. She knew rich people's kindness often came with conditions. And though Lila's heart was pure, Maya wasn't sure she could trust her father. There was something in his eyes, a mix of guilt and recognition, that made her uneasy. That evening, when she came to teach again, Adrian greeted her with an unusual gentleness. "I'm glad you came back," he said quietly. Maya nodded, smiling politely. "Lila wouldn't let me stay away," she said. He studied her face for a long moment. "Your father, Samuel Johnson. Do you remember him well?" She froze, her hands tightening on her sketchbook. "Why?" Adrian hesitated. "I knew him. Long ago." Her eyes widened slightly. "You did?" "Yes," he said softly. "He was a good man." For a brief moment, the silence between them grew deep, filled with memories Maya didn't know existed and guilt Adrian could no longer hide. He turned away quickly and said, "You can use the art room anytime you want. It's yours now." "Thank you," she said, confused by his sudden kindness. As she walked toward the art room, Adrian stood still, staring at the pendant shining faintly under the light. His heart was heavy with a truth he wasn't ready to reveal. Because now he knew, the girl who was teaching his daughter had come back into his life for a reason, not by accident, but by destiny. And soon, that destiny was going to reveal everything he had buried for years. The next few days passed like a quiet dream inside the Cole mansion. Lila was happier than ever. Every afternoon, Maya arrived with her sketchbook, and the two girls would sit by the window, painting and laughing until sunset. The once silent halls of the house now echoed with color, joy, and life. Even the servants smiled more. But for Adrian, peace was far away. Each time he saw Maya, he felt the weight of his past pressing harder on his chest. He couldn't look at her without remembering the fire, the reports, and Samuel Johnson's broken name. At night, he would sit in his study, surrounded by papers from years ago, trying to piece together the truth that had vanished with time. One morning, Daniel entered the office holding a brown folder. "Sir, I found the original investigation reports," he said quietly. Adrian looked up sharply. "And?" Daniel hesitated. It wasn't Samuel Johnson's fault. The fire started because of faulty materials provided by another contractor. Someone covered it up. The real documents were hidden. Adrian's hands tightened around the folder. "Who covered it up?" "Your former partner, Richard Hale. He blamed Johnson to protect the company name, and you signed the papers, sir." The words hit Adrian like a stone. He had signed those documents without reading the fine print, trusting Richard completely. Because of his carelessness, Samuel had lost everything. His friend's reputation, his family, his future, all gone. Adrian leaned back, his voice breaking. "I ruined that man's life," he whispered. Daniel lowered his eyes. "What will you do now?" Adrian didn't answer. His thoughts were racing, guilt, shock, and fear tangled together. He had to make it right, but how could he face Maya knowing what he'd done? That afternoon, as Maya walked through the park after her art session with Lila, a man with a camera approached her. "You're the girl teaching the billionaire's daughter, right?" he asked. Maya blinked. "What?" The man grinned. "Everyone's talking about you. A homeless teenager and a billionaire's family, it's a perfect story." Before Maya could say anything, he snapped a picture. The next morning, her face was everywhere, on blogs, social media, even TV. "Homeless girl inspires billionaire's daughter," the headlines read. At first, it seemed harmless. People praised Maya's talent. But within hours, other stories followed, darker ones. Some reporters claimed she was lying about her past. Others said Adrian Cole was using a poor girl for good publicity. Paparazzi appeared outside the mansion. News vans parked by the gates. Maya, terrified, stopped coming to teach. Lila cried all night, refusing to eat. "She didn't do anything wrong," she shouted. "Why are people being so mean?" Adrian was furious. "Who started this nonsense?" he demanded from his assistant. "Sir, it spread too fast," Daniel replied. But some reporters mentioned Richard Hale's company as the source. Adrian's face darkened. "Richard," he muttered. "Of course." He realized Richard was afraid Adrian might reopen the case and destroy him. Exposing Maya had been his way to silence them both. That night, Adrian called Detective Harris, an old friend. "I need your help," he said. "There's an old fire case, and a girl named Maya Johnson who deserves justice." "I remember that case," Harris said quietly. "Samuel Johnson was innocent. I always suspected a cover-up." "I need proof," Adrian said. "And I need it fast." Meanwhile, Maya sat under the same oak tree where she had first met Lila. Her heart was heavy, her eyes full of tears. People she didn't know had turned her into a story, twisting her truth into something ugly. She didn't want fame. She just wanted peace. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I shouldn't have ever gone to that mansion." As she sat there, a shadow fell over her. She looked up and saw Lila standing in front of her, holding an umbrella. "You promised you'd come back," Lila said softly. Maya wiped her eyes quickly. "I can't. People are saying things. Your father." "My father's looking for you," Lila interrupted. "He's worried." Maya froze. "Worried? About me?" Before she could say more, a black car stopped nearby. Adrian stepped out, rain soaking his suit, but he didn't care. He walked straight toward her, his eyes full of something Maya had never seen before, guilt and sincerity. "Maya," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry. I should have protected you." She stood there, confused. "Why are you apologizing? You didn't start this." He looked down, his voice breaking. "Maybe not this storm, but the one before it." Detective Harris appeared behind him, holding a file. "Maya," he said kindly, "your father wasn't guilty. He was framed. The man who caused the fire has been hiding the truth for years." Maya's breath caught. "What did you say?" "Your father was innocent," Adrian said quietly. "And I should have known it. I should have fought for him." For a long moment, Maya couldn't speak. The rain poured harder, but no one moved. Lila stood between them, tears in her eyes. You knew my father? Maya whispered. Adrian nodded slowly. He was my friend. And I failed him. I'm so sorry. Maya turned away, covering her mouth with her hands. The truth felt too heavy. All these years, she had hated a world that had turned its back on her family, and now the man responsible was standing right in front of her, broken, admitting everything. After a long silence, she said quietly, "You can't undo what happened." "I know," Adrian said. "But I can try to fix what's left." He offered her his hand, not as a rich man helping the poor, but as a man asking for forgiveness. For a second, Maya hesitated. Then, slowly, she took it. But as they stood there in the rain, a flash of a camera went off nearby. Someone had captured the moment. And by the next morning, the picture of Adrian holding the homeless girl's hand would go viral. This time, though, it wouldn't be a scandal. It would become the beginning of something the world didn't expect, the story of a man trying to make peace with his past, and a girl who unknowingly taught him how to be human again. The next morning, the world was talking about one picture, a billionaire standing in the rain, holding the hand of a homeless girl. The image flooded every screen and newspaper headline. Some called it the most powerful photo of the year. Others called it a stunt. But for Adrian, none of that mattered. He wasn't thinking about fame or headlines. He was thinking about the truth and the broken life he had helped create. Inside the Cole mansion, silence filled the rooms. Lila sat on the sofa, holding her sketchbook close. "Daddy," she whispered, "where's Maya?" "You said you'd bring her back." Adrian sighed. "She left before I could. I think she needs time." "But she didn't do anything wrong," Lila said tearfully. "People keep saying bad things about her. It's not fair." "I know, sweetheart," he said softly, "and that's why I'm going to find her." That afternoon, Adrian got into his car and told his driver, "Take me to the park." Hours passed as he searched through streets, shelters, and corners of the city he had never seen before. It was the first time in years he had walked through places where money meant nothing. Dirty pavements, graffiti-covered walls, people sleeping under bridges, the forgotten faces of his own city. Finally, near an abandoned underpass, he heard laughter, children laughing. He followed the sound and froze. There, under a cracked concrete wall, was Maya. She was sitting on a wooden crate, surrounded by a small group of homeless kids. She was teaching them how to draw with pieces of chalk and broken pencils. Her face was calm, her hands moving gently as she guided a little boy's hand across a torn piece of cardboard. The children looked at her like she was the sun in their dark world. Adrian stood silently, watching. His chest tightened. Even with nothing, he thought, she still gives everything she has. Maya looked up and saw him standing there. Her smile faded. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. Adrian took a deep breath and stepped closer. "I needed to see you," he said. "To thank you." "For what?" she asked, folding her arms. "For showing me what real kindness looks like," he said softly. Maya looked away. "You don't have to pretend, Mr. Cole. I know your world and mine don't mix. People like you don't walk down here unless you're lost." Adrian's voice broke slightly. "I was lost, Maya. For a long time. But you made me see things differently." The children began whispering and giggling, sensing the tension. Maya gently told them to go play nearby. When they left, she turned back to him. "Why are you really here?" He hesitated. "Because I found out the truth about your father." Her eyes narrowed. "The truth?" Adrian nodded slowly. "He wasn't guilty. My partner, Richard Hale, framed him. I signed the papers that destroyed him, without realizing what I'd done. And I can't forgive myself for it." Maya froze. Her face went pale. "You knew all this time?" "No," he said quickly. Not until now. I swear it. I thought your father made a mistake. But I was blind, selfish, too busy protecting my own name. For a long moment, Maya said nothing. The sound of traffic above the bridge filled the silence. Then, she spoke quietly, her voice shaking. Do you know what it's like to lose everything because of someone's signature? Because of a lie? Adrian lowered his eyes. Every night since I found out, I've asked myself that same question. Tears filled Maya's eyes. She turned away, whispering, my father was a good man. He worked so hard. After the fire, people turned on him. We lost our home, our friends, everything. He tried to prove he was innocent, but no one listened. Not even you. Adrian's throat tightened. You're right, he said softly. I didn't listen then. But I'm listening now. And I want to make it right, whatever it takes. She shook her head. You can't fix the past. Maybe not, he said. But I can help you build something new. Maya looked at him with disbelief. Why? Guilt? He nodded slowly. At first, yes. But now, it's more than that. You taught my daughter how to smile again. You reminded me what compassion looks like. And I can't walk away from that. She crossed her arms, her voice trembling. What are you planning to do? I want to build something, Adrian said. A place where kids like you can create, learn, and dream again, without fear. A community art center. Your name will be on it. You'll lead it. Maya blinked, stunned. You want me to run it? Yes, he said simply. No charity, no pity. Just purpose. You've already been doing it, teaching these kids under a bridge. Let's move that light into the open. She looked at the children playing nearby, their laughter echoing against the cold concrete. Then she looked back at Adrian. I'll agree on one condition, she said slowly. That it belongs to them. Not to your company, not to your image, to these kids. Adrian smiled faintly. Then that's how it will be. For the first time, Maya saw something real in his eyes, not power, not guilt, but humility. She nodded. All right, she said softly. I'll do it. As they stood together under the bridge, a soft light from the setting sun filtered through the cracks above, touching Maya's face. For a brief moment, she looked almost radiant, like hope itself. Adrian looked at her, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, peace. Your father would be proud of you, he said quietly. Maya turned her head slightly, her voice barely a whisper. I hope so. As they walked up from under the bridge, the children followed behind them, laughing and chasing the light. It was the start of something new, not a business deal, not a project, but a promise. Adrian didn't know it yet, but this decision would change his life more than any success ever had. Because for the first time in decades, he wasn't trying to buy redemption, he was learning how to earn it. Weeks passed, and the once cold halls of the Cole mansion began to feel alive again. The world had moved on from the viral photo, but something deeper was happening behind the headlines. The Hope and Light Art Center, a new project funded by Adrian Cole and led by Maya Johnson, was under construction in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. The press called it a public relations miracle. But for Adrian, it wasn't about publicity anymore. It was personal. Each time he visited the construction site, he remembered the guilt he carried. Every brick felt like a step toward forgiveness. Maya, too, had changed. Though she still wore the same simple clothes, she carried herself differently now. She wasn't just a homeless girl anymore, she was becoming a symbol of resilience, a voice for others like her. But peace didn't come easily. One evening, as Maya walked through the unfinished building, she saw reporters gathered outside the gate. Their cameras flashed the moment they spotted her. Miss Johnson, one shouted. Rumors say the billionaire is trying to use your story to fix his image. Are you being paid to stay quiet about your father's case? Maya froze. Her chest tightened. Before she could answer, Daniel, Adrian's assistant, stepped in. No more questions, he said firmly, escorting her inside. Maya looked shaken. It never ends, does it? She whispered. Daniel sighed. The world loves stories more than truth. But don't let them take your peace. Later that night, Adrian found Maya sitting alone in one of the half-built classrooms. The walls were bare, but she had drawn little sketches of children on them, smiling faces, hands holding paintbrushes, stars in the sky. You shouldn't be here this late, Adrian said gently. I couldn't sleep, she replied. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father. I keep thinking, if he were alive, would he forgive you? Adrian's expression darkened. I've asked myself that every day. Maya turned to him. Why didn't you tell the world what happened to him? You have power, money, why not expose the truth? Adrian hesitated. Because I need proof that will stand in court. If I go public too soon, Richard will twist the story again. But trust me, Maya, I won't stop until your father's name is cleared. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, quietly, she said, if you fail, I'll do it myself. Adrian smiled faintly. That's exactly why I believe you'll succeed, with or without me. The next morning, the first day of the art center's public launch arrived. Dozens of reporters gathered, their cameras ready. Children from shelters and foster homes filled the new classrooms, their eyes shining with excitement. Bright murals decorated the walls, painted by Maya and Lila together. Adrian stood at the podium, his usual confident voice replaced by something softer. Today isn't about me, he said. It's about a young woman who reminded me that kindness doesn't need wealth, it needs courage. This center exists because of her. He turned to Maya, who stood silently beside him. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed again, but this time, Maya didn't look away. After the ceremony, as the guests left, Maya and Adrian walked through the hallways. Lila ran up and hugged Maya tightly. You did it, she said cheerfully. Maya smiled and looked at Adrian. No, she said softly. We did it. For the first time in years, Adrian felt light. He thought maybe, just maybe, the ghosts of his past were beginning to fade. But peace has a way of being short-lived. That evening, Daniel entered Adrian's office, his face pale. Sir, he said urgently, you need to see this. He handed him a newspaper. The headline read, Whistleblower claims Adrian Cole covered up fire evidence, billionaire faces investigation. Adrian's stomach dropped. Beneath the headline was a photo of him shaking hands with Detective Harris. The article claimed that Harris and Adrian had reopened a case for personal gain, suggesting Adrian was using a fake redemption story to hide corruption. Maya entered the room just as Adrian finished reading. What's going on? She asked, confused. Adrian exhaled sharply. Richard, he muttered. He's fighting back. Daniel nodded grimly. He leaked the documents before we could finish the investigation. Now the press thinks you're guilty again. Maya's eyes widened. So what happens now? Adrian looked out the window at the city lights. Now, he said quietly, we find proof before the world buries us both. Maya stepped closer. Then I'm helping you. This is about my father and about justice. He turned to her, surprised. You'd trust me after everything? Maya's voice was calm, but firm. You're the only one who ever tried to make it right. That's enough for me. For a moment, their eyes met, two people from completely different worlds, standing on the same side of truth. Outside, thunder rolled across the dark sky. The storm wasn't over yet. But this time, they were ready to face it together. The storm outside raged through the night, thunder echoing against the city skyline. But the real storm was inside Adrian Cole's world, a storm of lies, betrayal, and truth fighting to be seen. The headlines had turned brutal. News anchors spoke his name with doubt, journalists questioned his motives, and investors were quietly pulling back. The once celebrated billionaire was now the center of scandal again. But Adrian wasn't thinking about his company. He was thinking about one thing only, proving Samuel Johnson's innocence once and for all. Maya, too, refused to back down. Every evening, she sat with old newspapers, copied letters, and burnt pieces of her father's files that she had carried for years. Together with Adrian and Daniel, she was trying to find a single missing document, the one that could expose Richard Hale's lies. One night, Maya noticed something strange. In an old photo of her father's construction site, she saw a small logo on a crate, Hale Industries. The same company Richard had owned. She frowned. "Adrian, look at this," she said, handing him the photo. Adrian took one look and his expression darkened. "That logo, it shouldn't be there. That company wasn't supposed to supply anything for that project." "Exactly," Maya said, her voice quickening. "If Hale's materials were used, then it proves he had something to hide. Maybe the fire started because of his company's cheap products." Adrian's jaw tightened. "And he pinned it on your father to cover his tracks." Daniel immediately got up. "I'll contact Detective Harris. We'll need a warrant to search Hale's storage facility." But before he could leave, Adrian's phone buzzed. It was a message, just one line. "Stop digging, or you'll lose everything again." Maya read it over his shoulder. "He's threatening you," she said. Adrian's eyes hardened. "No," he said quietly. "He's threatening us." The next day, as rain poured heavily, Adrian and Maya met Detective Harris in an old industrial zone at the edge of the city. Hale's old warehouse stood silent, locked, forgotten, or so it seemed. Harris forced the lock open, and they stepped inside. The smell of dust and metal filled the air. Stacks of old documents and boxes were piled to the ceiling. Maya picked up a dusty folder marked Construction 2005. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside were invoices, hundreds of them, all signed by Richard Hale, listing the exact materials used on her father's project. Every page was proof. Her eyes widened. "This is it. We found it." Before Adrian could respond, footsteps echoed behind them. They turned. Two men in dark suits entered, Hale's bodyguards. One of them spoke coldly, "You shouldn't be here, Mr. Cole." Adrian stepped forward, shielding Maya slightly. "Tell your boss he should have destroyed the evidence when he had the chance." The man smirked. "We'll make sure this stays buried." Suddenly, the lights flickered. Harris moved fast, pulling out his badge. "Police! Step away from them." The men froze. One tried to grab a box, but Harris aimed his flashlight straight at him. "Don't even think about it," he said. Within minutes, the officers outside moved in, arresting the guards and securing the documents. Maya let out a shaky breath. "We did it." Adrian nodded, relief washing over his face. "We finally did." But Harris frowned as he looked through the documents. "This is enough to expose Hale," he said, "but he's powerful. He'll try to escape before we can bring him in." "Then we go public," Adrian said firmly. "Tonight." That evening, Adrian held a press conference in the Art Center's hall. Dozens of reporters filled the room, their cameras flashing. Maya stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes were steady. Adrian stepped up to the microphone. "Months ago, a girl taught my daughter to paint. I thought I was helping her. But the truth is, she helped me. She helped me see the kind of man I had become." He paused, his voice steady but heavy. "Years ago, a fire destroyed more than a building. It destroyed a good man's life, Samuel Johnson. Today, I want the world to know he was innocent. The real culprit was Richard Hale, my former partner. I failed to protect my friend. But I won't fail his daughter. The room erupted in noise. Reporters shouted questions, cameras clicked wildly. But amidst the chaos, Maya stood frozen, tears glistening in her eyes. She whispered softly, "You did it." Adrian turned to her. "We did it." Just then, a phone rang, Harris's phone. He stepped aside to answer, his face turning serious. "What? When?" He hung up and turned to Adrian and Maya. "Hale's gone. He left the country 2 hours ago." Maya's face fell. "He ran?" "Yes," Harris said grimly. "But don't worry, with these documents, he can't hide forever." Outside, lightning lit up the sky again. The rain hadn't stopped, but this time, it didn't feel like a storm of despair. It felt like the world washing away years of lies. Later that night, as the crowd left, Maya stood by the large mural she and Lila had painted, a sunrise breaking through dark clouds. Adrian joined her quietly. "He'll face justice soon," Adrian said softly. Maya nodded. "I'm not angry anymore," she whispered. "Just tired. But maybe my father can finally rest now." Adrian looked at her with quiet admiration. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." Maya smiled faintly. "You just learned to see people again." They both laughed softly, a small, fragile moment of peace in the middle of chaos. But somewhere across the ocean, Richard Hale watched the press conference on his tablet. He smiled coldly and whispered, "You think it's over, Adrian? It's only just begun." The shadow of his smirk reflected on the glass window beside him, the next storm already brewing. The days after the press conference felt like standing on the edge of a quiet storm. The world finally knew the truth: Samuel Johnson had been innocent, framed by Richard Hale. Public opinion began to shift. News anchors called Maya a symbol of truth rising from injustice, and the Hope and Light Art Center became a place of healing for many. But even as the world applauded, Adrian couldn't rest. Hale was still out there, hiding somewhere, controlling the narrative through his connections. The justice they wanted was still incomplete. Maya felt it too. Every night she would sit near the art center's window, looking out at the stars, her father's words echoing in her heart, "The truth always finds its way through the smoke." One evening, Adrian walked into the center quietly. Maya looked up and asked, "Any news?" He sighed. "Interpol's tracking him. But Hale has powerful friends in Europe. He's buying time." Maya's eyes darkened. "Then we don't wait. We finish what he started, publicly, completely." Adrian studied her face. "What are you thinking?" Maya's voice was calm but fierce. "A live interview. You and me, no scripts, no PR. Just truth. Let the world see everything he did, every document, every signature. If he wants to hide in the shadows, we'll drag his name into the light." Adrian hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right. This time, we ended our way." 2 nights later, the live broadcast began. Millions tuned in, the billionaire and the homeless girl, side by side on national television. The interviewer started cautiously, "Mr. Cole, Miss Johnson, people are calling this the most unlikely partnership of the decade. What brought you together?" Adrian looked at Maya, then at the camera. "A mistake," he said. "My mistake. And a girl brave enough to show me what truth really means." He turned to the camera directly. "Years ago, I trusted a man named Richard Hale. Because of that trust, an innocent man, Samuel Johnson, lost his life's work. His daughter lost her home. I can't erase that. But I can face it." The interviewer looked at Maya. "And you, Maya? Do you forgive him?" There was a long silence. Maya's eyes glistened. "Forgiveness isn't something you say," she said softly. "It's something you show. Mr. Cole didn't give me money or pity. He gave me a chance to make something good from something broken. That's enough." The audience was silent. Then Adrian took out a brown folder, the same one from Hale's warehouse. "These documents," he said, "prove Hale's guilt. I've already turned them over to international authorities. The truth can't be buried anymore." As the broadcast ended, phones began ringing across the country. Within hours, Hale's name trended worldwide. Governments reopened old contracts, and Interpol issued a warrant. 3 days later, news broke: Richard Hale arrested at a private airport in Spain. Maya was in the art center when Daniel rushed in holding the newspaper. "They got him," he said, breathless. "He's being extradited." She froze, staring at the headline. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then tears spilled down her cheeks, quiet, grateful tears. Adrian entered the room moments later. "It's over," he said softly. Maya turned to him. "No," she whispered. "It's finally beginning." He frowned slightly, but then saw what she meant. Around them, the art center was full of children painting sunsets, cities, and dreams. The walls that once held silence now carried laughter and color. "This place," Maya said, smiling faintly, "is what my father wanted. Not revenge. Just hope." Adrian nodded, his eyes misty. "You gave it to them. And to me." Outside, Lila ran up with a canvas. "Look," she said proudly. "It's you and Daddy and Maya, standing under the sun." Maya knelt down, smiling at the painting. 3 figures stood side by side, holding hands beneath a bright, golden sky. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Adrian looked at it for a long time, his heart heavy but peaceful. "You know," he said quietly, "for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe." Maya stood up beside him. "Because truth sets you free," she said. "Even if it hurts." The evening sun poured through the windows, bathing the art center in warm light. For a moment, everything felt still, no noise, no chaos, just calm. Adrian turned to Maya one last time. "Your father would be proud of you," he said. Maya smiled gently. "Maybe," she whispered. "But I think he'd be proud of you too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows of the past finally faded. The billionaire and the homeless girl, 2 souls from different worlds, had rewritten their story. Not with power. Not with revenge. But with redemption. And somewhere in the golden glow of that final sunset, the world saw it too, that sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't about wealth or fame, but about finding forgiveness in the unlikeliest places.